Hello world and welcome to the next video. As everybody noticed, on election night, when counting the in-person votes, primarily in most states, President Trump appeared to have a commanding lead, where he was going to secure the presidency. If you weren't looking too closely, you may have thought that that was the case. And there was a legitimate amount of panic about things because the polling is certainly off. There was not going to be any sort of Biden landslide in this election. Places that counted in-person voting first turned red, while places that counted mail-in voting first turned blue, such as places like Ohio. Started out blue, and people thought that there was a chance Biden would win there, but then they got to the in-person votes, and it shifted deeper red. So this shift in several states, where we see the vote tallies dramatically moving in the opposite direction, has caused the president to claim that there is widespread voter fraud. The same kind of fraud that he's been alleging would happen for months. He's been saying and setting up the story. He's been encouraging his supporters to vote in person, even more so than the Republican Party already votes in person in most places. He did that on purpose for the case of trying to see if he can somehow delegitimize the actual mail ballots, which is what he's trying to do in several locations now. They have multiple court cases ongoing. The reality is, based on the ones I've looked at, they're all being thrown out because, in fact, they are not presenting any evidence to the court of any wrongdoing. At the moment, the court cases and lawsuits are, in fact, slowing the counting in several states as they add more vote counter watchers, people to kind of watch the process. Most of the places already have, obviously, all these things set up, but they've requested to have more people watching the vote counters, which is totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the lawsuits are not coming to any other conclusion because they're alleging some sort of fraud without evidence, and they're all being thrown out. So on election night, late into the next morning, as the time was changing past midnight, the president did come out and try to allege that he was victorious. And again today, he was alleging that he's victorious and saying that the states that are counting late mail votes, which are mostly Democratic, due to his own rhetoric about the voting and due to trends about Republicans voting more in person, based on the way those communities have traditionally voted, he's used that story to try to say that this mail-in ballot shift near the end, turning states blue like Michigan, Wisconsin, possibly Pennsylvania, possibly Georgia, he's saying that this is fraud with no evidence, and the cases are being, as far as I can tell, all thrown out. So the results that are called so far, we have Biden 253, Trump 214, and the states in contention are Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. Now, Fox News has in fact called Arizona for Vice President Joe Biden, which would give him 11 more electoral votes, putting him at 264, 6 away from the presidency. So according to Fox News, picking up Nevada, declaring it officially a win, would be enough for Biden to win. Alternatively, he could win Pennsylvania if it does shift blue, as it is getting very close as they're counting remaining mail ballots, or Georgia, which is even closer at this moment, although the number of votes remaining to count in Pennsylvania is larger, so there's more time for that to shift. Likely, possibly when you're watching this video, they may have already shifted Democratic or been called altogether. This is the New York Times map of the same scenario, except the states in contention are not yet shaded in. Georgia's just nearly done counting votes, and it's like 1,200 or so difference. So very, very close. And Georgia has a deadline on Friday, I believe, of anyone who has a ballot that was flagged as having an error, they are allowed to correct it due to state law. Now, Georgia, if I understand correctly, has Republican governor and basically all Republicans running the election there at the top level. So they are watching and making sure it's happening fairly, according to the president's demands, yet it is still shifting to Joe Biden. So Georgia is a good example showing that this fraud that the president is alleging is not taking place. That, in addition to his inability to show any evidence and having the court cases just thrown out, having no evidence of any fraud. There is a decent amount of fake news circulating, however, about cases of fraud, which actually are completely fraudulent. Some of them are going semi-viral, and social media outlets at times are restricting the spread of those stories, the spread of the disinformation. One of the things about social media is it's become easier than ever to make a fake claim and make it go viral. I guarantee you, any conclusion you want to come to, someone will willingly fabricate that evidence for you. So it's become more important than ever to be able to know what information you are consuming and to be able to differentiate fact from fiction, because you don't always have the ability to have a fact checker nearby or some valid source. And then deciding who is the arbiter of truth is also hard. That's why a lot of people are struggling with fake news and are just drowning in fake information. You have to develop that skill for yourself as well, so you don't always have to rely on somebody else. Although in some cases, there's always a certain amount of trust you have to put into the people verifying that information. So you have to make sure it's coming from some amount of credibility, and then you check the credibility of that source, of that arbiter, against your own fact-checking thing. Like, does it make sense to trust this fact checker? And I'm seeing a lot of people struggling with this in the world of social media and fake information. In conclusion, President Trump's allegations about election fraud and the lawsuits he's filing are extremely, extremely irresponsible and dangerous. And the pundits are agreeing, including some Republicans like Rick Santorum, are saying that this is not acceptable to be making the claims without the evidence, because you're just pushing a narrative, trying to incite people to take some action, possibly incite them to become violent over something that's not even happening. If something bad is happening, if there is interference or fraud, you need to present the evidence, obviously. But President Trump keeps repeating the claim without the evidence. And in today's social media world, for some reason, a lot of people take that information and devour it, hook, line, and sinker, and believe it. But we will not let President Trump undermine democracy in that way. We will fight back to preserve the right to vote. If you enjoyed my coverage, please do like this video, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.